Welcome to lecture number 32nd of the series Unreal Engine 5.1 for Archviz, and in this lecture we'll download some models of kitchenware items from cgtrader.com and then we'll use those items for this kitchen. So let's get started. First of all, I'll take all of these models, shelf decors, and I'll move them to a different folder. Yes. Now I'll open Megascans library and I'll download a texture for this shelf. Okay. I'll open Quixel Bridge. I'll open surfaces. And I want to download a marble texture. I'll open this texture. I'll add this texture into the project. And I'll apply this material instance on this mesh. Let's open this material instance and I'll tweak the tile size. I think 5 is good. Let's increase the normal. Let's try 2. Let's try 0.6. Yeah, I think 0.6 is okay. So let's now open CG Trader and download the models for this kitchen. Okay, so this is the first model that I'm going to download for this kitchen. You will find the download links of all of these objects in the description below. Okay, so I'll download this blend file because I want to make a few changes in this model. You can download the FBX file and import that FBX file in 3ds Max and make those changes in there. Okay, let's open this blend file. I'll click on this empty and I'll ungroup this. Let's disable the face orientation mode. And now I'll select this dish rack. I'll go into the edit mode. I'll select this vertex and I'll press Ctrl L on my keyboard and I'll separate this mesh by selection. Similarly, I'll select this mesh, go into the edit mode, go into the face selection mode. I'll go into the side view and I'll select these top faces and I'll separate them by selection. Okay, yeah, yes, so that's it. Now I'll select all of them and I'll export them in FBX. I'll select Blender to Unreal preset. Let's check this box and I'll export this in FBX. I'll rename this as dish rack. Okay, let's go in Unreal Engine. Here I am in Unreal Engine. Let's open this folder, my 3D models. I'll create a new folder and let's rename this as kitchenwares. Okay, I'll open this folder. Let's create another folder and let's import that FBX file. I'll select all of my static meshes and I'll bring them into my scene. Let's pull them up on Z-axis. Yeah, okay. And let's move them to a different folder. I'll rename this as 1 for now. Okay. Let's move them on Y-axis. Yeah. I'll select these plates and move them up on Z-axis because I don't want these plates to come out of this dish rack by a lot. Okay, so I'll pull them up on Z-axis. Yeah, okay. Now I'll select all of them. I'll go into the modeling mode to set the pivot point for these objects. And I'll select this bottom option and I'll accept this change. I'll go back into the selection mode. And now I can press Alt N on my keyboard to snap the pivot point of all of these objects to the bottom surface. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Let's now go into the materials folder and let's create a new folder. I'll rename this as kitchen. And let's create a new material. I'll open this material and let's create base color node, metallic node, specular node, roughness node. Okay. Yeah. Let's select the metallic maximum value of 1. Similarly, I'll do the same thing for these two. Yes. Okay. Let's apply this material and let's create a material instance. I'll rename this material instance as silver because I'm going to create a silver sort of material for this dish rack. Okay. Yeah. I'll check all of these boxes. Let's apply this material on this mesh. Yeah. Okay. I'll change the color to maybe all the way up, or maybe let's try 0.8. Okay. Let's increase the metallic value to 1. Yeah. Okay. And I'll increase my roughness to 0.1 or 0.2. Let's try 0.3. I think 0.2 is okay. Yes. And let's increase the specular to 1. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Let's create a copy of this material instance and I'll apply this material instance on these objects. And I'll decrease the roughness to maybe like 0.1. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Let's create another copy and let's rename this material as plates, and I'll rename this one as spoons. Okay, let's open this plates material. I'll apply this material on these objects. Okay. I'll decrease the metallic value and I'll disable it. Let's increase the roughness to maybe 0.3. So I'll apply the same material on these objects. Okay. Let's create another copy and I'll rename this one as box for this container. Okay. Let's check the metallic node. I'll set the metallic value to 1. Let's try roughness of 0.5. I forgot to apply this material on this object. Yeah, okay. Let's create another material and let's apply this material on this mesh, and I'll increase the albedo value to maybe 0.6. Okay. Yeah. Let's increase this to 0.8. maybe 0.6. Yeah, 0.4 should be okay. Okay, now I'll select all of them and I'll press Ctrl G on my keyboard to group them. Okay, now be advised, by creating a group, you're not combining those meshes. Okay, you're just creating a group of those meshes. So if I want to move them in my scene, I just have to select one of them and then I can move my entire collection. Okay, so let's place them maybe right there. Yes. So let's go back to CG Trader and download another model for this kitchen. Okay. Okay, so this is the second model that we are going to download for our kitchen. I'll just download this FBX file and then I'll import this FBX file directly into Unreal Engine. Let's open the kitchenwares folder and I'll create another folder. I'll rename this as 2 and let's import that FBX file. I'll open it and make sure you uncheck these boxes, the skeletal mesh and generating missing collisions, because I don't want to import any sort of animation with my FBX file and I don't want to generate any collisions. Okay, I'll import everything. I'll select all of these static meshes and I'll bring them into my scene. Let's move out. They are huge. Let's delete this plane. Let's delete this plane. Okay. And now I'll select all of them. And first of all, let's set the pivot point for these objects at the bottom. And let's bring them into the kitchen. Let's scale them down. Okay, I'll pull them on Z axis. Yeah, okay. Let me bring down the camera speed. And now I can press Alt N on my keyboard to snap the pivot point of all of these objects to the surface below. Okay. Yes. Let's apply the same material that we used for these plates. I'll search for this material in my content browser and I'll apply the same material on all of them. Yes. Right now these objects are combined meshes. Either you can go back in Blender or 3ds Max and separate them by selection, or you can also do the same thing in Unreal Engine as well, as long as these meshes are not connected to each other. Okay, so I'll select these objects, I'll go into the modeling mode and I'll go into the transform settings. Okay, I'll go into this split option and make sure your new asset location is set to current folder. Okay, by default it is set to auto generate folder, so make sure this is set to current folder. Okay, and search for the folder in which you imported all of these static meshes and I'll accept this. And now as you can see that we have our objects divided into separate meshes. Okay, similarly I'll select this one, I'll go into the split settings and I'll accept this change. I'll select this one and I'll accept it. Similarly, I'll select this one, I'll go into the split settings and I'll accept this change. Okay, yeah, let's go back into the selection mode and now I'll select all of them. I'll press Ctrl G on my keyboard to create a group. Similarly, I'll select all of these and I'll press Ctrl G on my keyboard to create the group. Okay, make sure you save your files regularly, because if too many unsaved files pile up inside Unreal Engine can crash. So make sure you save all of your files regularly. Okay, let's select all of these and I'll move them right here. So let's go back in CG Trader and look for a few more models. Okay, so this is the third model that we'll download for our kitchen. I'll extract this file. Let's open this blend file. I'll select these objects. Yeah, and I'll export them in FBX. I'll select my Blender to Unreal preset and I'll check this box. And let's rename this as Kitchen Toolset. Let's go back in Unreal Engine. I'll go into the Kitchenwares folder and let's create a new folder. Okay, first let me go into the outliner and I'll select all of these objects and I'll move them to a different folder. I'll rename this as 2. Okay, yeah, I'll open this folder and let's import that FBX file. I'll select my FBX file and I'll open it. I'll select all of these objects and I'll bring them into my scene. Let's pull them up on Z axis. I'll rotate this on Z axis. Yeah, okay. Let's select all of them and I'll move them to a different folder. I'll rename this folder as 3. Yes. Let's now search for the silver material that we use for this spoon. And now I'll apply this spoon material on these objects. Yeah, okay. Let's duplicate this material instance. Okay, and let's apply this material instance on this object, and let me change the albedo color to maybe like 0.2. Okay, yeah, I'll apply this material on all of these objects. I'll save all of these files. So yes, let's go back in CG Trader and I'll look for another model. I found this model, so let's download the FBX file. I'll go back to Unreal Engine. Let's create a new folder and let's import that FBX file. I'll select all of these FBX files. Okay, and I'll bring them into my scene. And I'll press F on my keyboard. Focus on those objects. Let's first set the pivot point for these objects. I'll set the pivot point at the bottom. I'll go back to selection mode. Let's move them to a different folder. I'll rename this folder as 4. Let's bring them into the kitchen. I'll press Alt End on my keyboard to snap the pivot point of all of these objects to the surface below. Let's search for this material instance. And I'll apply the same material instance on these objects. Let's apply this box material on these containers. I'll apply the same material in here as well. Let's increase the exposure. I'll select all of these objects and let's move them on x-axis. I'll disable my snapping, and let's rotate this on Z axis. Yeah, okay. I'll press R on my keyboard. Let's scale this up, and I'll move it on X axis. And now I'll press Ctrl G on my keyboard to group them. Okay. Move it on this side. Let's save all of these. Yeah, so let's go back in CG Trader and download another model. Okay, so I'll download the blend file of these objects. You can also download the OBJ file and import that in your Unreal Engine. Okay, so let's open Blender. I'll open this blend file. I'll select all of them and I'll export them in FBX. I'll select Blender to Unreal preset. Okay, and I'll export this in FBX. I'll open Unreal Engine and let's create a new folder. I'll import the FBX file. Okay, I'll select all of these objects and I'll bring them into my scene. Yeah, okay. First of all, let's set the origin point at the bottom. I'll go back into the selection mode. I'll press R on my keyboard to scale them down. I'll rotate this one on Z axis. First, let me enable my snapping and I'll rotate this on Z axis by 90 degrees. Let me decrease my camera speed. And I'll press Alt N on my keyboard to snap all of them to the bottom surface. Okay, let's move them to a different folder. I'll rename this as 5. Okay, yeah. Let's select this one. I'll select all of these. and let's move them on x-axis. Let's search for the materials that we used for these glasses. And I'll apply the same material on these objects as well. Let's save all of them. Let's go back into CG Trader and look for another model, okay? I'll download the FBX file of this disk drive. Let's open Unreal Engine and let's open the Kitchenwares folder. I'll create another folder. Let's rename this as 6 and I'll import that FBX file. I'll select all of these static meshes. And let's bring them into our scene. Let me increase my camera speed. And this dish rack is huge. Let's scale it down. Yeah, okay. Let me decrease my camera speed. And let's rotate this on Z axis. Let's select these objects. Okay, and I'll create a group. I'll press Ctrl G on my keyboard and let's move them on x-axis. And this is the benefit of grouping the objects, because if you want to move a collection, you don't have to select all of your objects each time. You just have to select one of them and then you can move the entire collection. Okay, yeah, let's select all of them. I'll move this on x-axis. I'll delete these objects because they have some weird shading. Yes. You can take these objects and place them over here, okay? Let's search for the material of the plates. And I'll apply the same material for these plates. Yeah. Let's apply this silver material on these objects. Now I'll select all of these objects and let's move them to a different folder. I'll rename this as 6 and I'll press Ctrl G on my keyboard to create a group. But first let me ungroup this by pressing Shift G. Let's first separate the meshes of these plates. Okay, I'll go into the modeling mode. I'll go into this split option and let's open the location of this static mesh in the content browser, and I'll make sure that my asset location is set to current folder and I'll accept it. Let's go back into the selection mode, and as you can see that now our plates are divided into separate objects. Okay, yes,